Jim, it's still a very small company. Well, David, so was Amazon, so was Facebook, so was Alphabet.
Really?
Yeah.
That monumental is the opportunity for this company.
I think that this food, the total addressable market for food, I mean, for beef, for pork, for chicken, is monster. And I think that I think McDonald's is dead wrong. There's no hobby here. The hobby is going to end up being meat.
Hi everybody and welcome back to the PlantStock channel. Jesse here, and tonight we're going to take a look at what Jim Cramer thinks about Beyond Meat and its future potential as a company. As many of you are probably a bit skeptical regarding the stock and might be asking yourself if this really is a company to stand behind in the years ahead, bearing in mind that there is a lot of volatility back and forward. In the spirit of that, I thought that Jim Cramer, who is a legend in the financial sector, that his vision for Beyond Meat's potential could make some of you feel better about your decision. The video with Jim Cramer is from May, but it is still very much applicable today, if not even more considering all the deals Beyond is getting. Like always guys, I would really appreciate an early thumbs up since it will help deliver this message to a lot more people. And if you want to keep getting more information regarding Beyond Meat and other plant-based stocks, please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit that bell button. Thank you guys, I really appreciate you all.
Going against Beyond Meat, going against history. And not just because I had an unbelievable cheeseburger last night that they gave me. The reason why there's a guy named Dr. Willett. He's the foremost nutritionist and epidemiologist up at Harvard. Everybody's foremost, I know, in this era, but this guy actually was predicting a pandemic basically because of the food chain. And Beyond Meat is now an ethos. I played a tape about how McDonald's said it's a bit of a hobby. Ethan Brown did not go for that. I think the more important thing is the Starbucks relationship in China. I think they can make a deal with Starbucks. I mean, this is how powerful this concept is. Those who betting against this because it has too much sodium, go check the sausages. They don't. I really believe that what's happening in a lot like Zoom when it comes to staying at home. The Tyson story, which obviously is abysmal, plus a sense that maybe the wet markets are part of the problem with the food chain. It's all going Beyond Meat's way. And what is Beyond Meat doing? They're cutting prices. So the price of meat's going to go up for the regular meat, and the protein that skips the whole meat chapter is going to do well. Beyond Meat is one of the most dangerous shorts in this market.
This is something I have often mentioned on this channel, that when Beyond manages to slash their costs and prices, we will get a whole different ballgame. What is the company developing in terms of not only the product and the appeal of the product, but also their manufacturing process, which is really key. It's not so much the product, it's the machine that makes the machine that's the key thing, right? Because if you can scale those efficiencies, you can reduce the cost of manufacturing, which in turn leads to that the product will cost less to provide to the customer. And in turn, you can undercut the competition. And obviously, that means you'll have more earnings, you'll sell greater volumes, you'll have productional scale. In other words, you'll have an advantage on your competition. So it's important that the company doesn't stand still, that they are constantly innovating. And if you're subscribed to the channel, you have heard me say this before. Innovation is what Ethan Brown is all about. He wants to create the perfect product for meat-craving people, but he wants to cut the prices and within a few years have a product that is cheaper than meat. And considering the new HQ in El Segundo, who knows, that time might be here sooner than we think.
You talked to Ethan Brown last night on Mad. Here's what he said.
We've reached the point where there's so many livestock on the Earth's surface that we're running into challenges with keeping that system working, and that supply chain is now, as many in the industry themselves have said, is under enormous pressure. So I think we are reaching a tipping point.
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, before I became Jimmy Chill, I would have said, you know what really is wrong here? They'll never make it because what's happened is food service is kind of dead because of what's happened with the economy and what's happened with the shutdown. The retail demand here is so strong. He is trying hard to keep up with demand. Now, I know my skeptical friend And notice I use air quotes friend. My skeptical friend, David Faber, will say, Jim, it's still a very small company. Well, David, so was Amazon, so was Facebook, so was Alphabet.
Really?
Yeah.
That monumental is the opportunity for this company.
I think that this food, the total addressable market for food, I mean, for beef, for pork, for chicken, is monster. And I think that I think McDonald's is dead wrong. There's no hobby here. The hobby is going to end up being meat, particularly if we hear more stories about the food chain. I think the pandemic is saying start eating plant-based. Now, you may say that that's pie in the sky. And you know what? Pound sand. It's real.
Now, I understand that this might seem like a crazy notion, that Beyond Meat could be the next Amazon, Facebook, or Alphabet. But again, ask yourself, why is it impossible? Food is such a large part of our daily lives, and you need to think beyond where Beyond Meat is today, pun intended. We're not talking about the Beyond that only sells a couple of different products. We're talking about a company that will more than likely move into all kinds of SKUs. The frozen section, dairy, etc. You name it. Imagine different animal foods and imagine a Beyond alternative. I mean, they haven't even really started to come out with their chicken alternatives in a proper way. In the US, most people eat more chicken than red meat. Consider the market potential here.
The move is
there
real.
a chance we run out of pea slurry or something like that, though? I mean, is that in question, or there's an endless amount of peas?
Endless. David, endless. Remember, there's a glitch in eating protein, and the glitch is that it goes through an industrial cow. Yeah. I used to have a Longhorn, David. I don't want anything going through that beast in my plate. I'm getting fed up myself. I might go vegan.
Have you sworn off? Have you sworn off meat? Have you? Are you going to do that?
No, I had a T-bone on Sunday. It's pretty good. But
Tasted pretty good.
But I can swear off meat because I'm tired of the idea that when you go to a meat packing facility, the question is how much COVID is in the place. I'm tired of COVID.
We are on the verge of a paradigm shift, and it does have to do with sustainability and animal rights, people's health. It is an undeniable fact that as a species, we can't keep developing our food as we have been. It just isn't sustainable. Yes, many people do talk about the detrimental effect that meat and dairy have on our overall health, and there is no denying that fact. When looking at meta-analysis from around the globe, the jury is in. Meat and dairy is not a health-promoting food, especially not in the quantities that many of us consume. Yet we tend to forget that this still becomes somewhat mute when there's another threat. Bearing in mind that we can talk about health however much we want, it will help us very little if we don't have a planet that is sustainable. But also, raising meat just isn't cost effective. Growing beans and lentils requires much less resources, both land and water. Why not just eat the food, the beans, the grains, directly instead of feeding it to livestock? And also, it is about brand recognition. For now, there is no other brand that is more globally recognized than Beyond Meat, which will also make it easier for them to break into other sections. So far, it is true for many people, eating a plant-based burger or other food items maybe once a week or so could be seen as a hobby, like McDonald's stated at one time. If we use Meat Free Monday as an example, it does seem like a great initiative at first glance, but is it really effective? I mean, if people who normally eat meat and dairy every day but skip one day a week, what realistic effect does that actually have on the climate or on your health? For most people, I believe their logical conclusion is that it should have some effect, right? Thinking to themselves that smaller changes is still a change and could have a greater effect with time. And I'm not saying that there isn't any truth in that sentiment, yet I would argue that the outcome is quite different for most people. I think that Dr. Richard Alpelander says it best.
When you go meatless on Monday, if you ascribe to that campaign, you're essentially contributing to climate change, pollution, depletion of our planet's resources, and your own health, then on only 6 days of the week instead of 7. You're creating a false justification, clearly a false sense of justification for what you're doing on those other 6 days of the week. So in other words, we really shouldn't be resting on our laurels of what you do right only 1/7 of the time.
With that in mind, it would actually make a lot more sense if it was the other way around, right? Vegan-free Mondays or plant-based free Mondays, whatever you should call it. If meat is something you really enjoy, then why not treat yourself once a week, one meal a week, or something like that? That would make such a huge difference for the planet, for your health, and for the animals. Let's not forget that it took Amazon years and years before they actually started to grow to where they are today. They're almost 27 years old company, and when it started to scale, it was considered overvalued, and has been considered overvalued and still is to this day. But this is also because we tend to look at these growth companies with outdated metrics that works well with value companies, but not with growth companies. There are so many people out there that have made the old mistake of telling themselves, it does seem to be a great company with a great future, but it is overvalued. It's better to wait until it drops down, then I'm buying it. And more often than not, because that company is really great, it starts to shoot off more and more, and then it's hard to catch up. So ask yourself, is this a great company with a lot of potential? And then make the decision. If it drops down even more after you bought it, then just dollar cost average, as always. Well, folks, that was it for today. I felt the need to present a different perspective from a long-term perspective. Hope you found some value in today's video, and if you did, make sure to smash that like button. And if you want to keep getting analysis and news updates on Beyond Meat and other plant-based companies, make sure to subscribe and don't forget about the bell button. And as always, folks, this was not financial advice. These are just my own thoughts and ideas, my philosophies. It's always important to do your own due diligence. Please invest safe and hope to see you soon. Thank you, guys. Peace out.